Welcome to It's a New Day. I'm your host, James Young. The vast number of people sent to jail or prison, 93 to 97% of them will return back into the community. How prepared are these people for coming back? How prepared is the community for receiving these people back? I have a panel of guests who bring their own unique perspective to this overwhelming question. This is a very talented, well put together team of professionals who have firsthand experience of how important reentry is to the success of the individual reentering to the community, as well the social commitment the community must make. I will let each person introduce who they are, what they do, and who they are with.
Hello there, James. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, I'm Mike Bleeg. I'm a coordinator for a group called SMART, which stands for Safer Monroe Area Reentry Team. And we have 30 provider organizations that have formed a coalition, an association, over the last few years, formed an association focused on people in reentry.
Would you tell us exactly what reentry is and what that means?
Well, we use that term to mean when a person comes out of either a federal prison, state prison, or the county facility. And in general, we're talking about, in this case, focused on people who have been sentenced. So not just that people are there over the weekend or for a week, but that they're sentenced people that have come out of prison or of the local county facility.
Okay. And now, would you go into talking about more or less what your organization does and how you help facilitate the service providers?
Okay, I'm going to go one step back. We have about 2,500 people come out of prison or jail every year into Monroe County, the vast majority of whom, 70% of whom are in the city of Rochester, 30% outside the city and throughout the county. So that's a pretty large population. And we have a number of providers, and what we did over the last few years was come together as a group and say, we have to not only be very effective in terms of how we work with Joe or Joanna or Rochelle or whomever, but we also need to work more with one another. That if we can form more of a network in working with people in reentry, then we got a better chance for that person to make good choices as to what they're going to do, and also to know that they're not just siloed between one group and another, that there is a network there for them. So that's really the reason we exist.
Very good. Please, would you introduce yourself and tell us what
Yeah.
your organization does?
James, thanks for having me. My name is Mark Swale. I'm with Cephas Attica, which is under the umbrella of Peace Prince Prison Ministries. And Cephas started after the riots in 1973. The guys in the prison didn't have anybody to talk to about their problems and everything, and the superintendent after the riots allowed a group of volunteers to go in and start talking with the guys about issues that arise every day in prison, be it the guards are beating me up or the food's terrible or this or that. And so they started going in and holding groups. Well, it evolved from there into having housing, and at one point there was a bakery here in town and a farm where they raised animals, and the guys that would come out would not only live in the house, but they would work on the farms and things. Here now in Rochester, we're down to a weekly Tuesday evening group that we hold here in a church. And basically what we do is discuss problems and issues that arise when guys are re-entering and they're on parole, and even a lot that aren't. And we try to work on the attitudes and behaviors that got the guys incarcerated in the first place, and try to deal with issues in a healthy manner and not revert back to our old ways of thinking I'm a victim or this and that. We also go into 8 different prisons and hold groups in those prisons around Western New York. And in Buffalo, we do have housing quite a bit. The Bissonnet and Hope House have merged with Cephas. And so those are some of the things we do. We do some community outreach, bringing guys that have been in prison for 20 plus years into the schools and talk to some of the classes about their experience, and in hopes that, you know, it might deter some of the children and young adults from going down the same path that they did.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, James.
Please, would you introduce yourself?
My name is Delina Harper, and I'm the house manager of Jennifer House, which is an outreach of the Spiritus Christi Prison Outreach. Not only do we provide housing to women reentering society from jail and prison, we also provide them with a safe environment for them to heal from their past traumas. We connect them with other agencies and resources in the community to address their substance abuse issues, mental health issues, and we also assist them reuniting them with their family. And once they complete our program, we assist them to obtain stable housing.
Very good. Would you tell us about what you do? Just to make a distinction, you're a little different from what the other providers are. And would you go into the family Catholic
Yes.
center, what it is that you do?
Well, thanks for inviting us, James. I'm Tino Fernandez. I'm a senior bilingual case manager for adult reentry services under the wing of Catholic Family Center. Mm-hmm. We are subcontracted with Monroe County Probation. We actually provide services to a variety of population in the community. There's the Rochester Safe and Sound, also who deals with individuals between the ages of 17, I believe it's 17 and 18, 19. And it's also coordinated by Alex Acosta. The other program that we actually have is the Adolescent Reentry Services, also another program under the Reentry Wing of Catholic Family Center, which provides services to youth individuals coming from, being referred from the family court system to OCFS. It's Office of Children's Family Services. And we also work with the Prodigal Sons and Daughter Project, which that's the one I'm in charge of at the Orleans Correctional Facility. And we work very closely with individuals reintegrated back into the community. And we work closely with Monroe, with the New York State Division of Parole and Corrections.
James Caldwell, Just Us Concerned Citizens of Rochester.
And tell us a little bit about what Just Us Concerned Citizens, what they do.
Basically what we do, we work in the community with people. We go into the correctional facilities. We work with people coming out of rehabs. We work with anybody who walks through the doors, and people that just know us from seeing us. We're visible in the community, so you know, it's an option for people to come to us and get information. We refer people to different places. But we also go into the jails and we work with individuals, do workshops in the county jail.
Okay.
Muhammad, like Mr. Caldwell said, Just for Us Concerned Citizens. I'm one of those he talked about 13 and a half years ago when I came home out of prison through transitional housing from Orleans Correctional Facility. Matter of fact, I'm the only male from Orleans that came through Corpus Christi, which was Corpus Christi at the time. I've been home 13 and a half years. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I went through the whole process. That's when Rogers House was a male house, 2 years, and I've been in part of Rochester ever since. I've been out 13 and a half years now. A couple of months it'll be 14 years, and I'm actually that transition from prison back to the street after 3 consecutive state bids.
Wanda Acevedo, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Wilson Commencement Park, and we're a little unique from the other individuals on the panel. We don't go into the prisons or jails. We actually provide supportive housing and a supportive network for individuals that are being reintegrated into the community. It is for single parents, and so they live with us for 2 years, and in those 2 years we connect them with resources to really help them work through whatever barriers that they currently have. We have accredited childcare on site that the residents use, And while they're with us, they work with a life coach so that they can talk about their individual program plans, so they can set goals. We help them understand financial literacy. We help them strengthen their family unit. We assist them with increasing their health and wellness, so healthy living, as well as improving their mental health or their substance abuse or even their domestic violence backgrounds.
I wanted to go back to you for a minute. You were saying that you go into the prisons and you're talking and trying to help develop a network, if you will, trying to better understand your clientele to help them better when they come home. How soon are you able to go into a facility to start talking with these individuals?
Well, we've been going in for quite a long time, and how it works, James, is say Mike and I are a volunteer. We'll go into the prison and we hold a group where we all sit around in a circle, and it's more geared towards, it's not geared towards any service per se, but the service is changing the attitudes, behaviors, and thought processes that got them in there in the first place. Because if a guy gets out and has access to all the best services, if he's not changing his thinking, he's going right back to the way he was. So we can have all these services, but we got to start with the individual. Okay?
Okay. And this is basically done on a volunteer basis. Is the
Every
does the
guy,
facility, the correctional facility, did they allow this to happen? I mean, are they working in conjunction with you at all?
Yeah, well, in conjunction, just being that they do allow us to hold the group. Spiritus Christi does go into also and hold a similar type group. And in my mind, these are vital for the guys, because one, the guys that go to the groups want to be there, okay? They're the ones that want to change, okay? And two, when they get out, there's still support. We hold groups on the outside, so if they keep coming, you know, they have a little bit of support. We can't help them do everything, get a job, you know, we'll try, but at least we have a family type atmosphere where, you know, they can call and have somebody to bounce something off of instead of going down to the corner, you know.
And working with women, I believe the community has become so jaded, if you will, against crime, that they fail to realize that these are women that have children and families. And how do you help connect? And in some cases, how do you even help them recognize that they are a parent or mother despite their crime or the things that may have landed them in prison? How do you work with the women inside the facility?
Well, a lot of times the relationship starts with the women and men that we serve in the facility, the jails and the prison, before they even enter the house, where we basically utilize cognitive behavioral therapy, where we challenge their thinking and help them change the thinking. Because once the thinking is changed, the behavior and the attitudes follow. You know, a lot of times the men and women are being released with the same issues that led to their incarceration. Prisons and jails are not rehabilitation. You know, so once they get to the house, an example, we recently had a woman, they have a law that if a child is in foster care for 15 months, the parental rights can be taken away. A lot of times the women are sentenced to 2 or 3 years. So then when they get to the house, they don't even have the parental rights. So we advocate for them, you know, to get their parental rights back and get their children back in their life. There's a woman at the house right now who, when she got there, she was on the verge of losing her parental rights. So we advocated for her, and she got a 6-month extension. So she's doing everything that she needs to do according to the court. She's in compliance with us, and the judge is very proud of her. So she has that chance to get her children back, you know, and we're advocating for her right now to get increased visitation with them, because she says she feels like the only thing she's lacking in is the area with her children. Because of the family court, she has to have supervised visits and whatnot. So they struggle in that area.
Okay, well, I think that for our viewing audience, I mean, this is information because they're so far removed from this, and unless you have a family member in prison or jail,
Exactly.
these are things that you're not normally thinking about. And I think, once again, what you just brought to our attention, I mean, someone's broken the law, but I don't think you should lose your family
Exactly.
because of that.
Exactly. And if
Okay.
those women don't have family members and loved ones to take care of their children while they're incarcerated, they possibly may lose their children, and it's difficult to advocate for yourself behind the walls of incarceration.
Okay. Would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, pretty much like she was saying, we actually advocate to get these individuals back, reintegrated back into the community. Of course, families have been affected by the incarceration as
Definitely.
well. And that's one of the issues that we kind of discuss when I go meet with the individuals in Orleans, that they're not the only ones that have been incarcerated, but also their families as well. So that puts a hold on their life and also a burden as well. And by us providing the support that we do provide in advocacy and case management, we are pretty much trying to, assist them in avoiding to get into recidivism.
Okay. How can we utilize all of your organizations to help try to push some more initiatives? For instance, you're saying that you're going into the prisons now, going into talking with the individuals, but I personally believe that if this were something that we could do much further in their sentence before they're released, because you're absolutely right. I can use myself as an example. When I was in Attica, I was a walking encyclopedia. There was nothing that you could ask me that I didn't know. Well, first of all, I didn't have anything else to do but read, so I just sucked all this stuff up. But when I came home, I had not changed as an individual, and therefore I went right back to my friends. Despite this newfound education, I went back to what I knew, what I was comfortable in. So comfortable that I ended up getting a new sentence and being sent back to prison for another 4 years. Once again, in there studying, honing my skills, if you will, come home again, and what do? I go right back to the same group of people, and that comes from the way that I was thinking. And I believe that if the correctional facilities were to allow us to get in there sooner, so we could help, as you're talking about the cognitive thinking, I think that this is really, really vital, because when we can get an individual to start thinking in a different path, knowing that they have choices, I think that this is what makes the difference. Now, I make a lot of people upset when I say this, but I believe that what we should be doing is re-entering productive people back into society. Now, I know this has nothing to do with you, because once again, the vast majority of the people that are going into prison, they're going to be coming out, whether they're productive or not. And now I think society would have it best of both ways if we could indeed re-enter a productive individual besides re-entering a criminal, because every time I came home, I mean, I was still very much criminal. I still had the mentality, the thought process of a criminal, so it's no surprise that I committed more crimes. And I believe that if we could get the community to start backing this, and that's another part of this. We've got to start getting the community. We've got to start getting your next door neighbor. We've got to start getting that landlord, that employer to understand that the charges that many of these people have been sentenced to, it's never going to change. If they went there for a burglary for the rest of their lives, on their record will be that burglary or whatever it was. What we have to be concerned about with, has the person changed? What do we do to help facilitate change? And I believe that maybe if we come together collectively, maybe we can start this ball rolling to be able to do some of these things.
I think you made a good point when you said the help needs to start as soon as they enter into jail or prison, because my story is similar to yours. One of the problems I had when I went to prison is I couldn't get any services like school or anything, because everything was a waiting list. And when I got out, nothing changed. I didn't have anywhere to go, so I went right back to the environment, that toxic, destructive environment, you know, and then I got resentenced again. And so I agree with you that that help needs to start immediately when we first get in there, not in the last 60 or 90 days. That's too much, too quick.
I wanted to ask you a question. Are there different needs for women versus men? I mean, I know what it's like to be a man coming home, but I'm assuming with a woman there have to be more issues. For instance, most men when they come home, there's not that immediate concern with trying to get the family back together. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do, but there's not that immediacy as it is with women. Can you talk about the difference?
Men and women have a lot of the same issues, but they do deal with them differently. And you mentioned one of them. A lot of times the women have their children when they get out. And in Monroe County, if a woman has her child, housing options are immediately limited. So when she gets out and she has her child with her, her options for housing just are immediately limited. So she doesn't have a lot of choices. But as far as like women deal differently with mental health issues and whatnot, they're more or less, from what I understand, they're less of a public safety issue, which I don't too much agree with. Women tend to hurt themselves more than they hurt other people. And one of the problems that I have is when I send some of the women down to the reentry, they're told that they're not a public safety issue, so they can't get some of the assistance that some of the men can get. And I understand where they're coming from, but I just want some of the women to get the same resources as some of the men so they can be there for their children, so their children won't grow up to be public safety issues.
Again, as I said earlier, there are 2,500 people, roughly, sentenced people, coming back into Monroe County every year. About 10% of them are women of that.
Yeah.
But the diversity of their needs, of that 2,500, I can't say all of them need X, or all of them need Y, or all of them need Z. It's a lot more complex than that. And so that network, what you've been talking about, what we've talked about, you need a network there for the person. If you can get that earlier while they're incarcerated, the better off you are.
Exactly.
The person needs to make his or her decision as to whether, you know, the cognitive behavior, the value of themselves, Delana knows very, very well. If they can make those commitments on their part, and then we can get the services there sooner, the better off it is going to be from a productive standpoint.
I know some of the problems with housing. Because people have felonies, there are certain places that they can't get into. I'm checking into if people actually have the right to deny you for moving into a place simply because of a felony. Now, I know the housing law states that it can't discriminate against race, creed, color, or things of that. There's nothing in there that states
Criminal
having
background.
a felony.
That's right.
Okay, but I noticed that people are being denied housing in certain areas, certain developments. Is there anything that you can do about that, or is this once again something that a collective will perhaps maybe have to do?
Well, I think one of the things that Delana brought up earlier is that for a woman coming out of incarceration that has a family, one of the biggest issues is that the housing stock for that individual or the housing opportunity is greatly decreased. A lot of people or a lot of developments, whether it's private, whether it's public, they do background checks, and that consists of credit and criminal. One of the first things that individuals look at is that if they have a felony, forget it, they're done. Like I said, Wilson is unique. We're about developing successful families, and I've always seen Wilson as a second, third, fourth, fifth chance type of facility. In 1995, I actually was a resident at Wilson Commencement Park, and I was fleeing from a domestic violence situation. And I tell you, if it wasn't because of Wilson and their support and their desire and passion to really give the families that opportunity to work on their deficiencies and become productive members of the city of Rochester. You know, there's a lot of families that would not have, you know, become successful or successful now. We're trying to end the cycle of homelessness. We're trying to end the cycle of poverty. So we're not going to discriminate because someone has a felony. We're looking at you today. Where are you today? What do you want to do with the rest of your life? You're here for 2 years. We're going to give you the opportunity to become successful. We're going to give you the opportunity to really strengthen your family unit. So we talk about child development, parenting. We want the child and the parent to grow together, so that when they leave Wilson, they have established a supportive network and they understand the resources that are available to them that will help them become a better individual, that will help their family grow. One of the biggest issues culturally is that, you know, we don't like to look for help. We don't like to tell anybody we got problems in our house. You know, oh, I'm not crazy. I don't want nobody thinking I'm crazy. But it's, you know, when you come to an environment like Wilson or any of these programs, you know, you're taught that it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
And you're not crazy. You just need a little bit of help. And we've all been through it. And we're here to help. It's that passion, it's that desire, it's an understanding that you have to give back to your community. And when you understand struggle, it's very easy to understand somebody going through that struggle and how to help them and how to reach out to them. So when you talk about what can we do, we could continue to educate ourselves, and we can continue to start cutting down people's ignorance on being a felon or being an ex-con, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. So if we start alienating people and cutting their resources down, what are we truly doing to our community? So it's all about education.
But on that note, there is another organization, METLAC, Monroe County Legal Assistance Center. They do fight for housing for ex-offenders. You know, so it's not like nobody's doing it in the community. It's just a lot of people don't know about it. You know, because the only reason I know, because I went through the challenge of finding a place to live because of my background, my history. You know,
you shared that with us, but what was the outcome?
The outcome was that I wrote a letter. They wrote a letter to the Rochester Housing Authority, and they changed their mind about not letting me in because they were threatened with a lawsuit. And sometimes that's what it takes. You know, it's like ex-offenders with records. You know, a lot of times they're denied employment because they have a background, a criminal history. You know, and that's why this organization is in existence now. You know, METLAC, because they help people that got records. You know, a lot of people don't know about them, and that's why I'm advocating for them right now, so people could go to them after they hear this message, because they need to go where they could get the assistance. Now, we send them to different places where they could receive this assistance that they need, but sometimes a follow-up is needed. You know, sometimes we need to take them there ourselves, you know.
This has been a very interesting panel, because I thought I would be the only one coming in here with a felony. But now I'm saying that this is what I believe reentry is all about.
Yes.
Is reentering people so they can become productive back in society.
Absolutely.
I believe that because we have committed a felony, perhaps maybe we owe the most. But if we are not given the opportunity to perform and do the things that we're capable of doing, I think that this is so, I think the community suffers, and naturally we suffer as well. And first, I'd like to thank all of you for what you're doing, and I think also what you're also doing is making the job easier, because now we can show this community to find examples of what you're doing, the fight that you're fighting.
True.
Because we have got to get your next door neighbor involved.
That's right.
We have got to get this guy that lives down the street involved. We've got to start knocking on doors. Now, we're basically preaching to the choir. We all know what the problems are.
Right.
Now, what we need to be doing is getting perhaps maybe some of these district attorneys, maybe some of these judges, some legislators, and just good people to start railing behind this. Because as I mentioned earlier, for some reason, people think that when people are sentenced to prison, that these people aren't coming home again. But the vast majority of these people are going to return.
Yes.
Now, what do you want returning back into your community? And I think that this is the question that they should be asked.
I think one of the major barriers is the stigma.
Yes.
Yes.
I was
Society.
going to ask you, and as you're saying the stigma, and how does this apply more to, is there a greater stigma with women?
Absolutely.
Definitely. That was my next comment.
Okay.
With women, the stigma is even greater. You know, and I know, like, just for me applying for my master's program with my 2 felonies, it was a long, demeaning process because I had to tell detail by detail of all my convictions. Every time I thank God that I have a job today where my past is an asset.
Exactly.
You know, but me applying for my apartment, I had to tell her everything, and I almost didn't get the apartment. You know, so it's the stigma. And then for women, being a recovering addict also and a mother, it's even worse. It's like exemplified.
Okay. What do you tell your clients when they're faced with these obstacles, many of the things that the panel is talking about? How do you keep them high-spirited?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is when you respect someone and you show them that you genuinely want to see them succeed, you know, that comes through. And so it's easier for someone to tell you what's really ailing them, what their real issue is and what their real barriers are. I think Delana, hit the nail on the head when she said that there's a stigma behind a ex-con that's a female, or a female that's an ex-addict. Because one of the things is women are seen as nurturers, and women are mandated with the care of their families, not only their children, but their parents, their sisters, their brothers, their significant others. And so when a woman falls, it seems like, well, how could that happen? And so the stigma is greater, and the emotional trauma and the emotional and mental trauma that the female goes through is long. It lasts longer, so it's long-term damage. So when they come to Wilson, I think one of the biggest things is self-care and letting them understand that, you know what, we all fall. And it's about standing up. It's about getting up every time and saying, today's a new day. I have a goal for myself. And those small goals are really what are significant in any individual being successful. I think sometimes, as providers, we want, oh, you could do this, you could do that. We give them everything all at one time. And that's hard to swallow. It's just too much to handle.
Yeah.
So I think, I know that what we do at Wilson is it's one day at a time. What do you want to accomplish today?
The young lady was speaking about different processes of people with criminal histories, and they have an organization, Judicial Process Commission, where they do background checks for people, clear up your background. They send all their property to Albany to get you a certificate of good conduct or a certificate of good behavior, after you've been home for a while. And they also do certificates of relief for people to go back to court if they have misdemeanors to clean up their rap sheets. So that's a helping process because I should have did it when I first came home. I waited to do it after 13 years, because my record was so extensive, I figured, well, they're not gonna give it to me with my background, So I waited, but at the time I was doing different things in the community, working with people, and that was my first start, working with Judicial Process Commission. And I learned how to volunteer, and that's where I started out.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you, James. My name is Wenzel Beckett. I was recently released from corrections after serving 31 years, approximately 10 weeks ago.
Okay. I would like for you to tell us the process of how you did your time. 31 years is really hard for most people to really process. I mean, how do you do 31 straight consecutive years? And in the process of doing that, how do you hold yourself up to thinking that after doing this amount of time, that you could still come back and re-enter into society and be productive, be accepted by society, because while you were there, you earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. So please tell us about that journey.
Well, first of all, you really don't know how you're going to do 25 to life.
Exactly.
You just you start out basically trying to hold on to your sanity. For me, there was a lot of blame, a lot of justification, minimizing, you name it. I went through all the defense mechanisms trying to maintain, myself. It came to a point about 11 years into my bid where I had a what some would call a conversion experience. I had to look at reality. I had to look at what my past has really been like, what I was like, what I had done. And that was really an overwhelming experience for me emotionally. And it brought me to a level where I was humbled. And I had to deal with what I was going to do for the rest of my life. There was a fear in me about my legacy and what I was leaving behind. If I should, die tomorrow, all people would know about me was that criminal history, that drug history, and I wanted to leave something more than that, the positive side of me. And so I started on a journey. I surrendered to my spirit. I surrendered to what some would call higher power. And I started on that journey, and my greatest fear was remaining as I was. And I started doing things that I would have normally said no to. I started accepting the challenges, and education was one of those challenges. And so I went ahead and I achieved my bachelor's and my master's. I started working in groups, self-help groups, therapy groups through Cephas, Spiritus Christi. And I started working with at-risk youth. I started working with community groups. And all this, it was a struggle, I admit. It wasn't easy. But I kept in focus of what I was trying to achieve or become. And I was running from what I was. Mm-hmm. And so that helped propel me on. And I reached a level of every experience, you achieve a growth. And I achieved a growth in places that were dead to me, I thought were dead to me, by experience, especially my spirituality, especially socially and emotionally. And so I think my greatest desire now is for atonement, trying to make amends, trying to some sort of redemption. And that pushes me, and it keeps pushing me, and that is my focus at this point.
Okay, very good. That's beautiful. Mike, can you attest to that? I mean, here's a person that has done everything right, and now he's come back to this community with somewhat limited resources. Educationally, he has the ability, for all intents and purposes, to really go out and earn a very good living. But because his network is so shallow, because the prejudice that people have in their minds, it almost sends a message for people not to do anything, to basically stay the same, because when you do, it doesn't seem like people get rewarded. How do you address that? What do we need to do as a community so we don't fail, Wenzel?
Well, I think about 2 or 3 things, okay? And it's a tough question, but one is, just like JC was talking about, and that's what I call James, JC. Mm-hmm. When JC was talking about somebody needed something done at Miclac. And so he got the person the information they needed to get the housing they needed. We need that network.
Right.
The network of providers who know, oh, I can't do anything about this,
right,
but I know who can.
Right.
And where they treat Wenzel or JC or whomever as a human being. That was the point that Wanda made earlier. Mm-hmm. When to build a relationship, you're not just a thing moving along the assembly line, you're a human being. So within the provider networks, we need to strengthen the network across the providers.
Yes.
And we clearly, within the provider network, need to treat each individual as an individual and respect who you are. and then you'll get to respect yourself more. So those are two things. And the third thing that's very important to me is not just for providers, but again, whether it's the criminal justice system, and I'll say that broadly, and the neighborhood groups. You've talked about the neighborhood groups. So James is now part of an effort where we're now linked with various neighborhood groups so that the person that James is working with will now have somebody at the neighborhood level, whether it's a minister, whether it's a person at a community center, whether it's a person at a, I'll just say for the sake of this discussion, at Need, George Moses and his team, they will get them connected to the resources that are in that neighborhood so that the person doesn't isolate themselves. Because I think, as you all know, is if I isolate myself, it's trouble. And so if we can get the neighborhoods linked with providers, linked with the system, the criminal justice system, and they're all working from ideally the same page when they're trying to work with Wenzel or Roxanne or whomever.
Very good.
Then we've got a much better environment for Wenzel and others to make good decisions.
And I think that's what we need to understand, that there's more Wenzels that's coming home.
Yes.
And there's more Wenzels that's home now
Yes.
that haven't been able to reach out like he's reached out, to the community and ask for some assistance, And I think that's what we need to make more aware, is that these different programs are out there for people, and that we need to have it broadcast. We need to have flyers up, we need to have billboards up, we need to have people on the streets, walking around with signs if necessary, saying this is where you could go get help. Because the more we help a person, the more we help society.
Exactly.
The more we bring a family back together. That's why the mentoring program is so important.
Yes.
Because each one teach one. We put everybody with a mentor. We guide them through the process of staying out for 6 months. Then we help them the next 6 months if necessary. This gives them the opportunity to do something different. They already want to do something different. Why not help them?
Exactly. What are some of the community organizations that you're working with?
SMART, which I'm a part of the SMART panel. We do an educational panel where we do workshops every month on different things in the community. We bring in different providers, and they give different providers information of what they're doing, where they could get assistance, where in certain fields that's needed, like we do men in trauma, women in trauma. We're getting ready to do kids in trauma, teenagers, young girls and teenage young boys, because a lot of unnecessary violence is going on in the community. And somebody needs to step in and try to put a stop to some of that. But we also do lifestyles and life skills, how to change your attitude, how to change your behavior. Because that's the important thing, bring spirituality back into a person, filling that void with something spiritual.
Wenzel, how do you view yourself now being home and seeing everything, learning how to text, I guess?
Yeah.
Getting
Show me
used
how
getting used to iPods and iPads and internet access and all of that kind of stuff. How are you dealing with all of this?
Very slowly. It's like a strange land to me now, with the all the iPods, like you said, the cell phones. Everybody's got one. Everybody's, talking, and I had to get used to people saying hello, and I'm thinking that they're talking to me, and I'm jumping and stuff.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
it took me a while to get used to that, but I'm getting there.
Very good.
And I'm
Very
enjoying it.
Despite everything that is going on, and perhaps despite some of the overwhelming odds and obstacles that are in your way, how strong are you?
Oh, I'm very strong. Spiritually, I'm solid.
Okay.
And nothing will throw me off course. I have placed. I'm trying to get somewhere. I will get there, and I will. See, there was a time before where I wouldn't ask for help. My pride, my ignorance, or both, would not have allowed me to ask for help, or my shame. But now, if I see an organization that says that they can do this or would like to do this, I'm there with open arms. I'm trying to, I'm giving them a chance. I have no, reservations about that.
Okay. I'd like to thank everyone that was part of this panel for coming here. I really appreciate this. I need everyone to realize that this is not the last time that we're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing another panel.
Beautiful.
This is going to become a mainstay, if nothing else, on my show
Yeah.
for Channel 15. We are going to be bringing this information more and more to this community. I would like to have all of you come back again.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the times out of your busy schedule. And more than anything, I am so proud of the many people that were on this panel who fell down at one time and now they're standing back up. What they say, a saint is nothing but a sinner who has
right.
turned his or her life around.
That's true.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Rethinking Reentry, a call for action. All those who go in must come out. This is true of at least 93% of those sent to prison. The release each year of thousands of people from prison back into communities they came from has established offender reentry as a high-profile issue. A wide range of public agencies, private organizations, community groups, and individuals should be rightly called to action on this issue. Both ordinary citizens and public officials have to recognize that once offenders have been held to account and served their time, their ability to transition to the community as law-abiding citizens is in the interest of public safety as well as in the interest of victims, offenders, and offenders' families. This clear understanding of the public safety dimensions of successful reentry by ordinary citizens and public officials is a significant opportunity. It is an opportunity to refashion our system to accomplish the twin goals of successful reentry and community safety. But it will not be easy. It will require the commitment and the best efforts of a wide range of stakeholders. A new vision, when the people reentering the community from prison have better survival skills, greater capacities to succeed, and stronger formal and informal networks of support, recidivism will decrease and offenders will not reoffend. Our mission. This mission can be realized, but it will require a changed sense of mission. A mission that goes beyond simply incapacitating and holding offenders accountable by imposing a period of incarceration. This changed mission will include mobilizing our knowledge and resources to do what we can to assure that offenders will be less likely to commit new crimes once they are released. This mission will also require a single dynamic transition, a reentry plan developed once taken into prison that will express the agreed upon strategies to enhance successful reentry for a particular offender. In sum, ex-prisoners who reoffend generate new victims, reduce public safety, and create enormous costs to process and punish their new crimes. They also diminish their own lives and damage the lives of their families and loved ones. Everyone loses. We all must understand what's at stake for society, offenders and victims. We also need to realize that we have to make things better. We must improve how we prepare prisoners to return to the community and to succeed when they get there. If many more of the hundreds of thousands of individuals leaving prison each year can successfully reintegrate into the community, avoiding new crimes, holding on to jobs, supporting their families, and paying taxes, everyone will win. You heard from the panel. You heard from Wenzel Beckett. Here is someone who paid his debt to society, serving 31 years, comes out better than when he went in. Not only does he have a bachelor's degree, but a master's degree as well. What do we have as a society to give back to him?
I had to look at reality. I had to look at what my past has really been like, what I was like, what I had done. And that was really an overwhelming experience for me emotionally. And it brought me to a level where I was humbled. And I had to deal with what I was going to do for the rest of my life. There was a fear in me about my legacy and what I was leaving behind. If I should, die tomorrow, all people would know about me was that criminal history, that drug history, and I wanted to leave something more than that. And I started on that journey, and my greatest fear was remaining as I was. And I started doing things that I would have normally said no to. I started accepting the challenges, and education was one of those challenges. And so I went ahead and I achieved my bachelor's and my master's. I started working in groups, self-help groups, therapy groups through Cephas, Spiritus Christi. And I started working with at-risk youth. I started working with community groups. I think my greatest desire now is for atonement, trying to make amends, trying to some sort of redemption. And that pushes me, and it keeps pushing me, and that is my focus at this point.
Despite his education, who will hire him at the pay scale that his education dictates? How many people will rent an apartment to him because of his criminal past? Where is the network of community members willing and ready to embrace Wenzel as a productive member of this community? An ant went to the bank of a river to quench its thirst, and somehow was swept into the river by its mighty current. The ant was almost at the point of drowning when a dove sitting in a tree nearby saw the ant and immediately plucked a leaf from the tree, which fell closely to the ant. The ant climbed onto the leaf and floated back to the river bank safely. A bird catcher stood under the very tree where the dove was. The bird catcher was placing his trap to catch the dove. The ant, perceiving what the bird catcher had designs to do, stung the bird catcher on the foot. And in pain, the bird catcher yelled and dropped his trap, and the noise made the dove fly away. The moral of this story: do you see how one good turn deserves another? Our choices are few, and our time is limited. We can choose to do nothing, but doing nothing is the worst choice we could choose. Welcome every morning with a smile. Why? It's a new day. My name is James Young. I will see you next week. Be blessed.